On the podcast today, we've got some suggestions for replacement seafood, and some of them are really rather fruity. And welcome to the Vegan Life Magazine podcast, the podcast that encourages you to play with your food. And today we're asking, is it possible to create fruits de mer out of actual fruits or des légumes? We won't make the usual jokes about being on a seafood diet, but this is a seafood special. So this is the show for you if you want calamari without the calamity, lobster without acting like a mobster, and shellfish without being too shellfish. Dear God, help me, I've reached peak dad joke. Let's get on with this and welcome our special guests. Chad Sarno, with his brother Derek, co-founded the Wicked Food family, and Chad is Chief Culinary Officer at their Good Catch plant-based seafood brand, which attracted $32 million of investment, $31 million of which was mine on condition they managed to synthesize an anchovy. Edward Daniel is the brains behind at Ethy Vegan. He's the former chair of the Vegan Society and author of Essence, the Beginner's Guide to Veganism. Welcome to you both. And welcome to what I think is probably the single most challenging aspect of vegan omni-replacement cooking. Like with cheeses, we're well on the way. Fake meats, nailed them. Seafood, though, like that's still the holy grail, I think. Chad, would you agree?
Oh, 100%. 100%. That's why we got into it with Good Catch. We looked at it a number of years ago as being a massive white space, right? Plant-based proteins have grown exponentially in the past five plus years, 10 years maybe. And, you know, the bar's been set really high. So we initially got a number of activist investors, impact investors in our Series A raise and, you know, shot for the moon and, you know, here we are.
And got to it.
Almost. We're getting there. We're on our way.
Amazing. Edward, what about you? To you, what's the ultimate kind of seafood challenge for vegans?
Well, all I say is seafood and eat it.
Exactly. My favorite. Do you like, because I've seen you've done scallops and stuff on your at Ethy Vegan account?
Yeah, I have 400 recipes on my website, and it's a case of actually try, experiment, and that's why I encourage your viewers to try and experiment, and you don't know what sort of creations you'll come up with.
Now, as always, you can email us with any culinary question. Are you bored with your borlotti beans or looking for a vegan take on your favorite takeaway? The address is podcast@veganlifemag.com. And we might take a week or two to get to your question, but that's because we want to make sure we put it to the best people to answer it. And we've got some great seafood questions for you. Kate asks, what's the best ingredient for me to use for seafood? That's a fabulously open question. I love that. Edward, let's start with you.
Okay, so there are various ingredients out there and vegetables that I would use. I do have a recipe for fish and chips, and I'd use banana blossom. I don't have a recipe actually for fish cakes, but again I would use banana blossom for that. For scallops, I would use king oyster mushrooms. I think that gives a really sort of a nice sort of fishy texture.
So what do you do? What do you do with it?
Well, you can saute the king oyster mushrooms. That's really easy. It's just really simple to do. Heart of palms, again, that could be a substitute for calamari. I really like that.
Oh, okay.
Really simple to use.
Do they have that pleasing kind of vulcanized rubber texture that I remember from calamari?
They do have that sort of texture. And for salmon, I'd use papaya. Papaya is a really good substitute.
Really?
Yeah.
So what do you do? What the heck do you do to papaya? Because I love papaya. What do you do to that to turn it into salmon?
You dehydrate it, and with paprika. There's actually a recipe on my website for that.
So that's for like a smoked salmon kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of smoked salmon taste to it. So
is it too sweet? Does it get too sweet?
No, because you have the salt as well, and the paprika, which would. And I don't think papaya actually is that sweet.
Yeah,
is this like not a fully ripe papaya, like a slightly kind of...
Yeah, it's slightly sweet. And then, to top it all, a combination of seaweed. And I would use nori, lava, bladderwrack, and egg rack. And I've actually got some samples here, which I have in my fridge.
Amazing.
This is
You said bladderwrack. That's like
Bladderwrack.
the stuff you see on every British beach with like the little bubbly nubbles in.
and it's edible. The way to I don't know
I
what
did
you
not
can
know
see
that.
from here.
Yeah, that looks like
You
your
see the
standard.
bladders. You can see the bladders there.
What would you do with that?
Well, we will go on to that when you ask some further questions, I presume.
Okay, I will. Don't let me forget. I need to write down the word bladderwrack. I had no idea I could go and eat the beach.
The other thing that I use a lot,
Yeah.
again, is egg rack. An egg rack.
Pardon me. Which rack?
Egg rack. The polyps are slightly smaller on this. Oh,
Right.
and again,
Any of those?
sort of, you rehydrate that.
Yeah.
Actually, put it in a high-speed blender.
So is that you dehydrate it and then powder it?
Dehydrate it.
Okay.
And
I can't wait till lockdown ends and I can go to the nearest beach.
And then I've also got Nori and Lava.
Right.
Nori and Lava is exactly the same thing. They're just different names. And again, this is this sort of texture.
Okay.
They're crispy.
This is all.
And
Yeah.
again, you can dehydrate that and make them into powder.
Amazing.
Ed, have you ever had sea palm? I was on the west coast years ago of the U.S. I'm not sure if it's over in England, but it's called sea palm, and it's like small. They look like little palm trees, but you can get it fresh. A lot of people harvest it on the west coast too. Same thing with nori.
No, I don't think I've heard of that. I'm going to make a note of that.
Sea palm's really good. Really good
Yeah.
rehydrated. I don't like a lot of seaweeds rehydrated just because they tend to be slimy. I grew up on the coast too, so but dried and ground I think are awesome for that flavor. But sea palm is like an actually nice flavored seaweed.
Yeah.
Which is nice. So
Amazing.
not too
Chad,
slimy.
I mean,
Yes,
we've
sir.
had quite an exhaustive list from Edward there.
Yeah, well, I agree with all of them. Papaya is a new one. Haven't heard that one before. You could definitely play around with the watermelon as well if you're going the fruit route. Mushrooms are my go-to when it comes to seafood. Lobster mushrooms, we have in our book. We have a lobster mushroom roll using lobster mushrooms, and you basically braise it in a little bit of miso, some kind of a kombu dashi sort of stock. And same thing with the mushrooms for scallops, as Edward said, and
it's kind of extraordinary how many mushrooms are named after seafood.
Yeah. Well, it's the lobster mushrooms, and then you got the king oysters, and the clustered oysters, and all of that. But for calamari, I like to use to get you that sort of rubberiness that that you like, or that you're more of an attribute.
Bicycle
I wouldn't say
tire.
that people like it, but overcooked calamari. I like to use also king oysters. So I'll just get the larger king oysters. Most Asian markets have the larger ones. A lot of them at regular supermarkets are trumpets, which are a little bit smaller.
Right.
But using a ring mold, you can cut them out. You get those rings, and same thing. Poach them, bread them, fry them.
Amazing.
Delicious, right? So,
I mean,
mushrooms would be a go-to if you're using single ingredient and anybody in the home. Banana blossoms, I love that everybody's been using those lately. That's it's such a great product for fish and chips. Edward, do you marinate yours before you use it?
No, I dry mine. I don't dry. I just simply pat dry them.
Have you ever tried it fresh before?
I have. I was in Bali a couple of years ago at the Bali Vegan Festival where I was speaking.
Nice.
And there I managed to get a tree and use a long stick to bang the banana blossom off, because it has this fleshy texture, and it's sort of a purple skin to it, purple skinned flower, and it's just amazing.
I've never used it fresh for fish, but I've done. We have a recipe in the book that's it's a traditional Filipino dish, and I don't know the Filipino name. It's in our book, but it's basically you're taking the banana blossom, you're shredding it up, and you salt it, and you're squeezing it out, and you're squeezing out all the sort of acidic pieces because it has a lot of acidic notes. So you're rinsing it, and then you cook it, and it's more like a pulled pork. And I use a coconut cream, the Thai Trinity I call it, which is shallot, garlic, and chilies. With some ginger in there, coconut cream, lime juice, all that, and it's so delicious. You let it simmer down, and It's so good and its texture almost like pulled pork when you shred it up and cook it. It's real good, real good. I think it's on our blog too. So on the Wicked Healthy blog.
That sounds immense.
I'm
so glad that we've got onto banana blossom because Dahlia said, I'm always terrified of banana blossom, which sounds awful. How to prep and cook them. So, Edward, you take it because I think for most people in the UK, we're probably going to be getting canned. Not few of us own banana trees.
I drain the excess water off and then pat dry it because only that's the only way I can get it here in the UK in cans. And then typically I would batter it with a mixture of maize flour, rice flour, and tapioca, and that sort of gives it a nice sort of crispiness with beer.
Okay.
Course,
nice, and then just fry it.
Got to have the beer, right?
Yeah,
you got to have the. I mean, why bother with the banana blossom?
You drink the beer, or you add it to the batter?
No, I'm not a beer drinker, so I only use it solely for culinary purposes, of course.
Sure,
get it.
I mean, I'm not a beer drinker, but I'll do it if you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm near a brewery, I might have to. I just looked up on our YouTube channel. We have that video too on the Wicked Foods YouTube channel, the banana blossom. Not for seafood, but more of that pulled pork style.
Chad, while we're talking, we're still sort of on Kate's question about using seafood. You should tell us about the stuff that you've got already in stores and that you're developing.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Jake. So, I mean, I could talk about kitchen cooking all day when it comes to single ingredient product, but we launched this company called Good Catch a couple of years ago. We launched it really to disrupt the seafood industry. I mean, there needed some disruption, as we all know. Anybody who's watched Seaspiracy or known a lot of those facts prior. There needs to be some serious shakeup, and there continues to need to be. And so we launched it about 3 years ago to catch the eye and to disrupt the space. We started selling some shelf-stable tuna products, which is available in the UK. But we also we wanted to catch the eye of the industry, which we did. We caught the eye of Bumblebee, which we are. They're our distribution partner now to get us on more shelves in the US. And so that was validation that we're heading down the right track. So we opened up our factory. We looked for co-manufacturing for a couple of years. Couldn't find it really in the plant-based protein space. So we opened up our own factory. We got our Series B investment. That's the one that you quoted. And then we just opened up our factory in Heath, Ohio to produce our own product. We can protect our own IP and all that. So we have... we launched the factory, and then we launched our frozen line this past summer. So we opened up the factory in June. We launched our frozen line in July with our three frozen products, which will soon be over in the UK very soon.
And what are they?
Good. So we have a fish burger. We have a classic fish burger, and then we have a crab cake, New England style crab cake, and we have a Thai fish cake. And they're all, raw to frozen. So you use them just like someone would cook fish. And in the U.S., they're being marketed and sold in the seafood department, which has been a huge success in the frozen seafood department and the canned seafood aisle. And so then we launched our food service line in September, which is our, bulk, all of those products, but also our food service tuna, which is a frozen product. So our product on the shelf we got that out there to get the brand out there to disrupt that stale aisle, right, and to just catch some eyes. But our frozen product it's the same protein. We make it it's a 6 legume blend, and it's not just pea or soy. We have those two included for functionality, but we also have chickpea.
It's so like the KFC, the secret blend of 12 herbs and spices.
Yeah, it's a proprietary 6 legume.
It's your Coca-Cola. Of course.
But
known only to the family.
But it's lentil, fava bean, chickpea, navy bean, soy, and pea. And so the reason we chose those 6 different beans was based on the functionality. It's an extruded product, so it's high moisture extrusion, similar to Beyond Meat or Gardein or those products. And so the functionality of those legumes all have different properties, right? So they have different gelling properties. So that's how we were able to achieve that thin layering of protein. So the biggest attribute I feel of seafood, and we just named off a couple things that have similar sort of texture with hearts of palm and banana blossom and all that, is sort of the layering of protein, and it's the texture. The texture is key, right? And so we worked on texture for about the first year and a half, and then got into it, with the extruded process. But we've landed on that 6 legume blend. But so our frozen product, our food service product, we launched in September. It is so good. I can't wait till it hits UK. It's in the US. We launched with Veggie Grill. If you've ever heard of Veggie Grill, there's about 40 locations, 35 locations or so. We launched with them, and within 2 days, it was like the third best-selling sandwich on the menu is a tuna melt. And then they kept it on the menu. So now we're in all locations. And then we just launched.
Whenever a new product comes out, or a new vegan thing, the grapevine. I always think it's sort of like Night of the Living Dead. Like all the vegans come out when they hear about a new product.
I'm telling you, the early adopters, man. The early adopters, what break or make any kind of vegan startup, and those early adopters are us vegans that I'll travel 50 miles to a fast food restaurant for a $4 burger if it's vegan. Do you know what I mean? If it's a new showing, just to support them and just to show my excitement. And so, and we're a very rare breed here because, but this sort of segment of early adopters, we call them, are what really make brands, and that's, you mentioned Wicked Foods and the early adopters in the UK. You guys are incredible. The support that we got behind Wicked Kitchen when we launched Wicked Kitchen 3 years ago. We launched with Tesco 20 products under the Wicked Kitchen brand, and 22 products. And when Tesco had nothing, right? They had a fruit cup and a hummus wrap or something like that.
Yeah.
But for the first 6 months, they were sold out of all the stores. For within a couple hours of putting them on the shelf, which is amazing. It was because they're early adopters.
Yeah. Do you? I'd like to ask you both this, Edward. Would you in supermarkets when you've got kind of vegan replacement products? Would you rather? And I'm going to be really interested in your answer, Chad, but Edward.
This is a trick question. This is.
Would you rather see them in their own dedicated kind of vegan free from section, or would you rather see them alongside the more traditional thing that they're replacing?
I think it's easier to see where the vegan products are if they're in one location, rather than having to travel around. I'm one of these people that like to go into a supermarket and do my shopping really quickly. I don't want to be wasting time.
You don't want to go up and down every aisle.
Yeah,
right?
I see. I take a sleeping bag. That's the biggest outing of my week.
I want to do my job. I want to go in, get what I need, get out.
No, for me, it's a day out. It's the Natural History Museum. Chad, I'm interested in you because, strategically, I can see why having your seafood products amongst seafood might make might be a great opportunity to kind of take a little bit from that market.
Yeah, I think we learned. Yeah, we learned a lot from Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat started selling it in the meat department, and their sales were exponentially, increased, 10 or 15 fold, right? Just by moving the product. So if you look at the shopper in general, in the US, it's about 45% of the shoppers are actively seeking plant protein alternatives. They're looking to diversify their protein consumption, right?
Wow.
And in the UK, which is crazy, is 70%, 68 to 70% of UK shoppers are actively looking to diversify their protein consumption. That means that 70%, they shop in the meat department. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so if they're shopping in the meat department and they're like, you know what, I want to try plant protein this week, because I'm trying to be healthier, whatever their lever is, right, to buy the product.
Yeah.
And so they grab it. It's right there. Those shoppers are not going to the vegan section. 5% of the shoppers are vegan, and those are the ones that are going to the vegan section. Unless they're shopping for someone else in their household that's vegan. So putting it in front of those shoppers that are actively looking to diversify their protein is essential, I feel. And it's completely worked with ours. Our frozen products, we, all of the buyers, which is amazing because I think, Beyond Meat started the trend of selling in the meat department here in the US. And now all of the buyers, like the seafood buyers, the meat buyers, now they're involved in all these conversations, right? So they're actively looking for protein diversity, and it goes back to, it's sort of just from the consumer standpoint, it also goes back to all these big investors. We're looking at some of the biggest animal ag companies coming in and investing in plant-based protein, and Maple Leaf, which owns Greenleaf, they came into our Series B, and the way that I was speaking with the CEO of Maple Leaf, which is the largest pork exporter out of Canada to Japan, which is just insane. But they were no longer calling themselves a meat protein company. They were a protein company, which is amazing. And this is where Bumblebee falls into. They know that the fish stocks are going down. They know that the sustainability is, a wash, right? And so looking to diversify their protein consumption for their consumers was to, offer a plant protein. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool. It's fascinating how I'm not sure what your vegan journeys are, but just being in the space for a long time, and it's it's crazy. The past 10 years, it's insane. Like what's happening. And finally, like all those, being called a hippie for so many years because they eat rabbit food, is finally paying off. Right. So
yeah,
we were right.
Also,
we were right, you guys.
Yeah. Well, there was a great article by David Mitchell. He's a UK comedian. And he wrote a brilliant article, I think, in The Observer, where he said, the trouble with vegans is, deep down, we know they're right. And I thought that was a great sort of self-effacing observation.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Also, just thinking about like replacements for salmon, tofu lice isn't a thing. Let's have another question. This is, I know, it's just awful. Isn't it?
That's gross.
Sam says, how can I get fishy flavors into stocks, broths, and sauces? Chad.
I would, different algaes, as Edward mentioned, using different algaes and seaweeds. And I like kombu. If I'm making any kind of dashi stock, a traditional one has kombu in it. And so I'll just double up on the kombu. But I also like doing a combination of little miso, little kombu.
Kombu, is that a seaweed? That's a seaweed.
Kombu is a seaweed. It's a larger one. It's a larger, thicker pieces that are traditional in dashi with bonito, which is fish flake. But I would use a concentrated kombu stock. Like in the earlier days when I was trying to, and now I have a lot of shortcuts. But when I was making scallops using mushrooms, I would poach them in like a really strong concentrated kombu stock. You don't really need to do that because the texture is everything with mushrooms. Yeah. So you can just basically slice them, as Edward mentioned, and pan sear them, baste them with soy butter or whatever, soy sauce butter,
Yeah.
And that's it. And then you get a scallop. You can skip that step. But if you want that fishiness, a concentrated seaweed stock, I think is probably best.
Scallops don't really taste of much, do they?
They don't. No, they don't. That's the thing, right? They taste. If you taste them, they're probably bad.
Yeah, something's wrong if you can taste the scallop. Edward, you've taken us through bladder rack, egg rack, which Easter must have been incredible in your household. Are most seaweeds edible?
I don't know the answer to that question.
How careful do you need to be if you're just out there?
I only go to. I have a friend of mine who's a forager, John Dale, and he's the one who sort of assists me with the appropriate seaweed to collect. Dulse is also nice. I use dulse a lot, but those are the three main seaweeds that I tend to use.
Yeah. And do either of you have a tip? Now, you can buy now vegan fish sauce, and it's good. It is good, and it's got some of that kind of seaweedy, oceany thing. Have either of you managed? Because what I'm really missing is that really, frankly, rank, fermented fish head, like the worst, most depraved, inhuman thing. You're not like it's so nasty and bad and so right. I know, and I miss it. Have either of you managed to come anywhere near that?
The smell is so nauseous. Why would you want to create it?
Brilliant.
I haven't. There's a company. What is it? Vegan 24 or 24 Vegan? I'll look it up. But it's they make the best fish sauce. I believe they're out of Australia, and they send it in through LA. I'll get the name of it for you, and I'll get right back to you in a bit here. But it's incredible. And that my brother likes fish sauce because he ate fish sauce at one. But I never liked fish sauce. I thought it was just nasty. Just like natto or NATO, whatever you want to call it, stinky tofu.
I love that.
I went to Japan and had some fresh natto, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. My friends try and get me to eat it here. It's just like durian. Like I don't like durian either. So
I've never had durian, but I feel like I'd probably love it.
Yeah, you'd probably like it. If you like stinky things, you'd probably like durian. If you like fish sauce, you'd be all about durian. Funny story about durian, real quick, if we could sidetrack.
Yeah, of
quick.
course.
So I have, when I was, this was back in my, when I was being called a hippie, I was traveling in my vehicle, doing vegan events all around, 20 plus years ago. Kind of dates me a little bit. Doing vegan events in the U.S. and I was at this place in New York, and they were having a durian party, and it was up on the second floor, and it was all these raw foodies and all this, and they got this big fresh shipment. This guy was like the fruit mafia, right? He would get all this fresh fruit that you couldn't get anywhere. And he got like a crate of fresh durian. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go show up and just kind of see what this is all about. And went up there, and it was on the second floor, and everybody's cracking open durian. Everybody's having a good time and euphoric, and I'm getting stanked out. I couldn't do it. And so I'm eating something else. And all of a sudden we hear sirens. And sirens, like everything from the fire trucks came to the little fire marshal in his little red truck. Like they all pulled up right in front. We hear his stomping. They ran up the stairs. They kicked in the door. Okay, the full gear firemen. And they were all standing there. They kicked down the door, and there's all these hippies laying around eating durian, like blissing out. And they had a call from a neighbor saying there was a massive methane leak in the building. And so they followed that lead and thought there was a massive gas leak in the building because of all these fresh durians that were open. So anyways, it was kind of a very funny scene.
Chad, just don't ever have dinner with me. Edward, have you tried durian?
I love it. I absolutely love it.
I gotta try.
I like sweet fried onions.
It actually tastes of custard. It's this sort of moist custard, this beautiful cream color, and it just sort of melts in the mouth as you sort of just eat it.
I think we have those different receptors. Like some people like cilantro, coriander, right, and other people think it tastes like soap. I think it's the same thing with durian. Like I have the anti-receptor.
Yeah.
There
are a few people
it tastes like
socks.
People,
some people can't take truffle as a flavor either. It's sort of got something.
I think it's in those camps.
Yeah, I'm just glad I've got massively impaired receptors and I can take anything. Sam, hope that helps. Sarah says, I really miss tuna with mayo on a baked potato. How can I reinvent this? Chad, why don't you just go ahead?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Good catch. Good catch tuna is fantastic. Seriously, go to goodcatchfoods.com. Check it out. Yeah. We're shipping all over the place and we're available all throughout the UK.
But if not, Edward, what would you do?
Lots of options.
If you wanted to,
how can I compete? How can I compete with Chad, really, honestly?
But chickpea, come on. You can't beat it. Chickpea tuna salad's the best.
Chickpeas or sunflower seeds, I would use.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How do you do sunflower seeds?
Like a pate, right?
Yeah, made a nice little pate and add some seaweed with it. That's what I would do.
Yeah, back in the day, I had this little. I was into raw foods a lot, and I had this little raw food cookbook called Vital Creations, and I had a Save the Tuna Salad. It was called back in the day, and it was sunflower seeds and almonds, pate kind of thing, and then the usual onion and pickles and.
The seaweed I would use actually with that would be bladderwrack. Bladderwrack goes really, really well. Rehydrate the bladderwrack. Sunflower seeds soaked. You can activate them for 8 hours or whatever, and then make it with some vegan mayo. Vegan mayo with cashews, olive oil, lemon juice, and some salt. That's what I would do.
Nice.
So what's the difference of taste of bladder? I've never had bladderwrack dried. How is it? Is it stronger than like a kelp? Is it saltier? Is it slimier?
It's not as salty as that. It is. It is not as slimy.
So is that why you're okay rehydrating it? So you rehydrate it before you use it because is it too crunchy when it gets dry?
Yeah, exactly. Or totally just totally just have it. Where is it? At the moment, I've got it all as said. Where is it? Where's my display of stuff?
This is like the best assembly ever.
Just have it there, powdered. That's the easiest way to do it.
Get it.
Right.
And just rehydrate that. Or just add it to the vegan mayo. That's the simplest.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would make. I mean, I don't have a tuna mayo recipe on my website, but that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Seaweed and mayo. That's a good idea. It's a great idea.
That is a good idea. Sarah, tuck in. Darren says, I live on the coast and would be interested to know what are good coastal herbs to forage. Well, I mean, there's going to be, no one's going to be able to find bladderwrack anymore. Everyone's going to go out and chomp down on that. But Chad, have you done much foraging?
Not on the coast, no. Just mushrooms.
No.
Well, actually, mushrooms on the coast, up in the mountains, up in Oregon. But no, not fully on the coast, no. On the coast, sorry.
Are there herbs specifically particular to the coast? I don't know.
I don't know really. I mean, seasonings, flavors. I mean, I've been to a sea salt harvesting situation on the West Coast also, which is really cool. But yeah, herbs. I don't know. Edward, you?
Well, I've actually got
sea beans. Sea beans.
Of course, you've got some to show us. Amazing.
So here, I'm going to show you some stuff. You look at this. I don't know whether you can see this. This is. Can you see that? I've got to put
up a bit.
I've moved my.
There you go. There
you go.
Okay, so what that looks like little sort of granules of like barley or something.
Now,
it's what?
Rock samphire.
Rock samphire, which doesn't look anything like samphire. It looks like a grain.
It is. Well, these are the seeds actually. These used to be green, but what happens is you dehydrate them and you can keep them. So when they're fresh,
what is it?
Beautiful rock samphire.
Rock samphire.
What is that? I've never heard of that.
Samphire do you know samphire?
No, it's different. It's different to samphire. There's samphire and this is rock samphire. This is actually you collect the rocks. You can forage on the rocks.
No, I was just explaining to Chad. So samphire it grows coastally. It's an incredibly salty. It's kind of long, stringy kind of vegetable, and it's a great thing with seafood. It's
interesting.
It's a really big, it's intensely salty, and I find I love it with tofu, with like some sesame seeds and stuff, just to kind of.
Yeah. Can I just tell you that samphire?
But yeah, so tell me the difference between samphire and that stuff, which is completely different.
The samphire that you're talking about, you can actually get when you're walking on a beach and it's a very muddy beach, and it'll grow through the mud. So it's normally low where the beaches are on low tide, and it's very muddy. And the sort of flat plains, that's where you'll normally get the samphire. The rock samphire you'll get on tops of cliffs. So this I foraged in Newquay, and there's loads of this stuff.
So what does the plant look like?
It's a sort of it's a green yellowish plant, and it comes out, and it's not very high. It comes off the ground.
Sort of 6 inches or so.
It's actually on the rock. That's why it's called rock samphire. Instead of samphire.
It's like a moss.
It's like a moss, yeah. It's like a moss, you'd say, but a bit taller, small little plant.
Interesting.
No more than a foot off the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
And then the other one I've got is Alexander's, which look here. These are black. Can you see them?
So again, that looks like a seed. That's a seed, right? Looks like a sort of sunflower seed.
Now, actually, Alexander's are now coming up, and the leaves are edible. I don't have any leaves with me, but they are green and lush, and you can use them for recipes. And the other one that I've got, I don't know whether you know, is...
What kind of flavour does an Alexander have? And the rock samphire?
It's very much like both Alexanders and rock samphires have this sort of salty, peppery taste.
Okay.
So cool that it grows near the coast and it picks up a lot of that salt from the soil or whatever.
Exactly.
Very cool.
And it's really, and what I normally do is dehydrate them, and then I'll hydrate them. For example, I've got on and I think it's in Vegan Life magazine next month or whatever. There's a dish which I have, which is vegan scallops with coastal herbs, and this uses these ingredients. Plus also I have sea purslane. Sea purslane again. This is something I foraged last month in Norwich.
Okay. And that looks more kind of grassy.
It is.
Obviously dried.
It's very sort of, if you look, it's very leafy.
Yes.
Can you see that?
I can see that.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it tastes like salt. But you see that the colour here is sort of greyish, dark.
It's like sage kind of thing.
Yeah, sage. It looks like sage. But when you actually do, when you actually rehydrate it and use it in in recipes. It goes a beautiful green color. It just
Wow.
it just becomes vibrant.
Very cool.
Amazing.
Very cool.
Well, thank you for that question, Darren, and thank you for your answers. We're going to take a break in the listener questions to ask the eternal question.
What do you do? What do you do with tofu?
Yes. What do you do with tofu? This is where we find out just what your standard go-to recipe is with tofu. Like, it doesn't have to be particularly grandiose. You know, we're just here to see what do you do with tofu? Chad, let's start with you.
Tempeh, is that what you said, Jake?
Tofu.
Tofu.
I'm just
I
kidding.
said not tempeh.
I'm kidding, buddy. I
Don't
know.
trigger me. I swear to God, I will.
I swear, you throw
Oh
up
wow! Yeah, honestly, I cannot.
I'm just kidding, bud.
It's quite fun. I'm now being trolled by some former guests on this podcast who will now on Instagram. They'll kind of at me saying, "Check out my tempeh recipe. Don't you want it?" I'm like, "No, I don't."
Nope.
Do you like the
depends on
tempeh?
what
Do you
you know.
like the tempeh?
About tempeh. I do.
Yeah.
When it's fresh
You do?
tempeh, I like it better. I like it better. You know, dry. You know, straight up chilled tempeh, cut up, put in a stir fry. No, I think it's bitter and it tastes like, you know, it's not so
Yeah.
nice. But
knew what
you
you were
gotta.
gonna
I
say
think.
there.
But steaming it, you gotta add some moisture to it. You gotta steam it, marinate it. If you steam it and add some moisture to it, or you poach it and then batter it and fry it, that's way more like juicy and way better
Okay.
than just the dry, bitter
Interesting.
tempeh.
I can't believe I've allowed tempeh to hijack the tofu slot.
Sorry,
Let's go back to
buddy.
tofu. No.
All right, tofu. I'm a huge fan of tofu. I love tofu. It's one of my staples. I always have it in my fridge. My kids love tofu. In the morning, obviously tofu scramble for sure. But what I love just using a firm tofu for and just pan frying it. You know, super simple pan frying it. I like to press it and pan fry it while it's in a good amount of oil. What I'll do is I'll pan fry it, but just coat it. You know, so I'll kind of put a rub on with it and then press it on the cast iron, and so it
What
sears
kind
and
of
kind of
rub are we
blackens.
talking?
Any kind of togarashi if you want to go that route, or any kind of Cajun rub, or just any kind of seasoning blend. You can
okay.
just heavily season it, barbecue seasoning or whatever. Wicked Line has
And-
a bunch of great seasonings. I've been.
So you rub that into the tofu before you cook it at all?
I do. Well, I'll coat it with a little oil. You can press it, and then you pan sear it. I put a weight on it, so I'll put another cast iron on it. Okay, it's same way that I do any kind of mushroom dish. Even when I'm doing my scallops, I'll put another cast iron on the scallops so that it presses out that water. Kind of condenses
So
the
you
fibers
did the
a little
whole
bit.
slab. You're not.
Yeah,
You're not.
you can do the
cutting
whole
this up.
slab, or I cut
Yeah.
it in maybe 4, so they're still thick slabs.
Uh-huh.
And then coat it with any kind of spice mix. A good amount of oil, a couple tablespoons of oil, super high heat. Put it on, put the cast iron over it, and then turn it, and then you get this amazing crust. And so before you turn it, you coat the other side with herbs or spices, whatever. Flip it over, move the pan a little bit so the oil disperses. Put it back on the pan, and then put the weight back on it, and then. And you get this amazing crust on it, and you can then put a gravy on it or whatever. That's my go-to. I love just a
Sounds amazing.
So
Yeah,
good. It's so good. I love tofu.
You're making me hungry now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a go-to. It's super simple, and just using cast iron is key. I feel with a lot of plant ingredients.
I've never tried that. I've got to try that. But I love the idea of pressing it while you fry it as well. That's awesome. Edward, what about you? What do you do with tofu?
Well, I have to say, tofu is perhaps not one of my favourite ingredients, but I do.
What?
But I do.
Do you know what? Hang on a minute. How do you feel about tempeh? Just a second.
Again.
Do you prefer tempeh?
They're similar. They're similar.
What?
What I find difficult. What I find
The
difficult.
soybean, that's why they're similar.
Yeah, and what I find difficult with tempeh and tofu is that they are neutral ingredients. So therefore, you need to add something in order to flavour them up. And I'm not sure. particularly keen on that. Although I do have numerous recipes on my website for them. And,
You ever had a good fresh tofu though? A fresh tofu has
Yeah.
flavor. Like a good fresh homemade tofu has just by itself or just with a little sesame oil on it. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a
I do feel like newcomer vegans won't know this yet, and it will take time. But I never appreciated how much my palate would change. I remember my mother offering me soy yogurt before I turned vegan, and I was like, "This is just coagulated cardboard. This is disgusting." And now, of course, it's creamy and delicious to me. And new vegans won't appreciate just how much your palate changes, and how I'm definitely at the point now where, like you, Chad, I can just appreciate the intrinsic flavor of tofu. I don't necessarily have to dress it up anymore.
But the good thing about tofu is it's so versatile. I mean, that's what I love about it. You can make a tofu scramble. I use it for moussaka. I use it for stuffing with jalapeno peppers. I marinate it with wasabi and lemongrass. I make frittatas with it.
Tell me what you do with moussaka.
Moussaka, I just use it as one of the layers, and it's just great. It's great with some semolina as well, and that will just make a really lovely top layer.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you pre-fry it or bake it or anything, or you just put it on?
I just put it in a mixture and then and use it that way. If it's for vegan moussaka.
Nice.
But for mousses, it's really simple. Chocolate mousses,
silken.
Rhubarb burnt sugar. I've used beetroot, pomegranate, and rose petal mousses. All these are just so easy to put together with soft tofu,
Yeah.
silken tofu.
Yeah, I also use it in terms of functionality too. I use it for functionality when I'm making fresh pasta. We have a fresh pasta recipe on the website and on the YouTube channel, and I use it with because typically it's eggs are used in fresh pasta making. And they're used for functionality, nothing else, right? Unless it's a yolk pasta. Yeah, for the protein and the fat, so the combination. So I use silken tofu and a fat, whether it be a vegan butter, a sustainably harvested palm oil, or a olive oil, as the fat. Yeah. And so you blend that up and you kind of make the egg, and then you would add some 00 flour, some semolina, and then you have pasta dough, and it's so good because it works as function, and it makes the the dough very pliable. We have I think it's like a 30-minute video on our YouTube channel about making pasta. So
fantastic,
pretty cool.
Great things to do with tofu, and Edward, I'm trying to. You conflating tempeh and tofu is just I'm really struggling with that, but I'm going to try to keep going. Back to listener questions. Don't forget you can email us. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com with your food questions on any topic. Casey asks, what's a good smoked salmon recipe? Now, Edward, you've suggested papaya, which is
exactly
out there, but do you have any other go-to alternatives?
You could actually use carrot instead of papaya. And again, I would use nori apple cider, maple syrup, sesame seed oil, paprika, juniper berries, and some lime. Mix that all together.
And do you marinate? Do you cook the carrot?
No. I would marinate that. So either papaya or carrot.
Do you just slice it finely?
It'd be raw. Slice it really thinly.
Okay.
I use a spiralizer. Spiralizer is really good to get that sort of thinness to it.
Yeah, and how long do you marinate it for?
And then sort of marinate it for a few hours, and then dehydrate. That's the way I would do it.
Okay. I love how much you dehydrate stuff. I've got a dehydrator that does not get enough use. Yeah. Chad, what about you?
I like salt. I like salt baking carrots. So I'll salt bake them just like salt baked potatoes. But I'll get the larger carrots and salt bake them, coat them in salt. Add a little bit of moisture to them, but coat them in salt. And then you bake them until you get basically this hard rock of salt. I have a recipe in the Whole Foods cookbook that my brother and I wrote with them, and it's you crack the salt, you take it out, you wipe off the salt. You can even rinse off the salt because the salt's already been absorbed, and then you can slice it really thin with a knife, and then add a similar marinade to like what Edward had mentioned. So
yeah,
but salt baked it really it softens it and makes them so tender, and kind of breaks apart like a salmon would.
Yeah.
So
I tried that with beetroot. Recently.
Salt baked.
It worked really well.
Yeah. It's amazing, right?
Or-
I mean, those techniques
Yeah.
are just, it comes down to just technique. I mean, there's all sorts of questions around how to cook and how to do this and how to do that. But when you understand foundational cooking technique, just the foundation cooking, like how to properly bake, how to properly caramelize, how to properly saute, how to properly roast, how to properly reduce, like these similar, like as a chef, right? We take advantage of knowing these techniques, and so we'll write a recipe saying reduce this, bake that, sear that, but most people don't know how to do that. And so if you break it down to foundational cooking technique, and I started a course called at Rubio, it's an online culinary school. It was a plant-based pro course, and it was all focused on foundational cooking technique. And then you learn a technique, and then happens to be 5 recipes with that technique. And once you nail the technique down, then cooking's so much more enjoyable. You know what I mean? Rather than so many people go recipe to recipe, and they're, if you hand out one recipe to 10 different people of different skill levels, they're going to translate that recipe totally different, because they translate how to bake, how to brown, how to caramelize, differently, right? How to sear, right? Most recipes don't tell you how to sear. They just say sear this for X amount of time. What are the indications of a proper sear? What are the indications of caramelization? Like those simple techniques, is once you arm yourself with that, then cooking's a breeze, So
That's such a good point.
That's a really good point, Jazz. Yeah.
Yeah. Walk before you run. Let's ask Lauren's question, which is prawn and mayo sandwich was my go-to, and I'm ashamed that I still crave this from time to time. There's no shame here. There's no judge. You're allowed to crave. The fact is we don't eat it. Doesn't mean we didn't enjoy it. Is there a good prawn substitute that I can buy in the shops or make at home? Edward?
I don't have the answer to that. I mean, I would just use sunflower seeds soaked in water, and add paprika and some vegan mayo. That's what I would do, and use some nori with it.
Yeah.
Chad, I don't know whether you know.
Yeah, I mean, going the mushroom route, if you're looking at the characteristics, I think that's what it is, right? You look at the characteristics of the product that you miss, right? Whether it's meat or whether it's seafood or a dairy, and you look at those characteristics and you kind of break it down into the plant world of what can kind of carry some of those characteristics. And I think shrimp are a little rubbery, similar to a calamari, similar to a lobster. So I would go the mushroom route. I mean, you could just cube them up, poach them, and then same thing, do it with mayo. There's a lot of there's more and more plant-based seafood companies coming to market. Right now we don't have prawns yet, I should say, but there's a lot of products on the market you can certainly play around with. But there's not a lot of favorites for me on the market currently, so I would go the mushroom route, because you get that sort of rubbery chew that you're looking for.
There is, I've mentioned it in previous podcasts, but TKC do a cod fillet that I've been toying with the idea of. It's like a big slab thing. I've been toying with the idea of cutting it up quite small to make a kind of scampi thing, and I think it might work well as a prawn thing.
Nice.
Another thing I'm thinking of is I've seen it on someone's Instagram page, and they're actually doing it as a vegan egg salad. But I feel like it might work as shrimp, and they had a secret ingredient. I feel terrible that I can't attribute this to the person who did it, because I can't remember, but their secret ingredient in an egg salad was, I think they used chickpeas for the kind of egg yolk part, and I was thinking it's good for that. I usually add some kind of tofu for the egg white part, quite finely chopped, but they used cooked pasta, which sounds mad, but then you kind of think, yeah, actually, cooked pasta has that sort of egg whitey kind of flavor. And as I think about it, I feel like, is it slightly shrimpy, like slightly prawny? That sort of, as you say, that slightly rubbery texture. I don't know. Maybe I'm going mad. Yeah, what you mean by that, Chad, is no. That's a terrible.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So that's why you do the podcast, and I'll run the multi-million-dollar global empire. Good point. All right, last question is from Nikki, who says, what are good vegan substitutes for a paella? I mean, traditionally, it
depends on what kind of paella you want. I mean, you want a traditional seafood paella? I guess that's the topic, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Going back to those ideas that I think Edward and I were sharing with how to, a good scallop, a good fish, a good calamari, and, cook those separately, and then fold them into the paella when it's almost done.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to overcook it. I'd probably add jackfruit as well to the other ingredients if I was making paella. I think
Yeah.
that would give a nice,
Get me all hungry.
I know.
nice texture to round up with banana blossom and king oyster mushrooms. I think that would make a nice sort of paella dish.
That's a top tip, and something we've touched on in previous podcasts is, and it's such a new idea to me. And it as a vegan, you have to slightly restructure the way you cook some things. And traditionally, the protein part is the most robust part of the dish, and it can take an awful lot of kind of abuse during cooking. So with paella, you'd start perhaps with the seafood and then add your rice and stir it all in, and it would be fine. Whereas, of course, sometimes structurally the vegan protein products are just a little bit more fragile and need a bit more care. So that tip on cooking it separately is a really good tip. That's it. Thank you both so much. Where should people go to find you and the things you're doing? Edward, let's start with you.
You can view various recipes. I've got 400 recipes on my website, and it's SEVegan, ETHIVEGAN, and you can view recipes there. That's
Great.
where you find me.
Chad, what about you?
WickedHealthyFood.com. Also, Wicked Foods is our food line, Wicked Kitchen. Wicked Foods YouTube channel, and Good Catch Foods, our website.
Perfect. Don't forget, the Vegan Life magazine is available in shops, or you can subscribe online. It's a little bit cheaper at veganlifemag.com, or you can download the Vegan Life magazine app. We've got all the bases covered. And we always love to hear from you, whether you've got any comments about the podcast, or if you've got any questions, do fire them away. It's podcast@veganlifemag.com. What do you do with tofu? I'd love to open it out and find out what sort of recipes you have as a go-to with your stuff. If you would subscribe to the podcast, if you haven't already, that would be fantastic. The best thing, though, that you could do is to recommend it to your vegan chums, or even your non-vegan chums. There's a lot of vegan curious people out there nowadays. We really want to grow the podcast so that we can bring you more and more better and better episodes. We'll be back next time with a barbecue special. But in the meantime, from me, Jake Yapp, thanks very much, and bye-bye. This has been a Swanburst Media production.